And to the parties here on San Juan Wilson.
Your Honor, Don Edwards for the defendant.
No, we're not on the record. I'm just trying to ascertain a couple of things. Are you all working to see if you can open exhibit 1 or a replacement for 1?
So Daniel's on his way down, Judge, and we're going to, I believe he's going to try and figure out which exhibit is on his external drive. We're working on it, Judge.
I'm also expecting Mr. Cox, the trial attorney, to be here, so he can probably confirm the duplication.
Okay. All right, thank you.
With the end, just, you can't hold it against something. Does it? Yeah.
All right, Mr. Piper and Brittany Brown. Yes. My understanding from the probation officer is that she will be sent and want to. No, wherever she's supposed to be going to status for the trial. Yes, so it's, yes, so if that doesn't happen, just come back in 3 weeks and we'll do something else. Okay. All right.
I really agree with you.
Yes, thank you so much.
As far as I'm concerned, the only person spoke the truth is Jordan. So, and that's the whole argument I'm making. Read it what it says.
All right, I'm being told that all the jurors are
Think they
here.
could see that?
Defense, are you all ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And there's a witness by iPhone. Let me see that.
Oh, and John Fabian has to appear by Zoom. Okay? Are you okay with that? Is she moved up and schedule the psychologist?
So there's someone here by iPhone. Person by iPhone, you need to start your video, please.
No, not necessarily gonna do that. I have myself ready, but I'm in jail. You're in big help. Don't have any idea how hard I've worked. The last ones are gonna have me papers? No. I might use some, but not. No.
It's just on end, Judge.
We'll have this information, contact them by phone. All right, defense, who's going to be your first witness?
Mr. Adame.
All right, is Mr. Adobe here? And Hank, you may want to move.
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
And then,
Yeah, you want to scoot here? You want to sit here?
the people here for the San Juan Wilson.
Yeah.
We'll take that up on a break, so whenever you all are ready and you feel like going out, the exhibit 1, just let us know.
He's gonna go through all the technical stuff outside, Your Honor.
And you all can use my office if you would like to, if that's easier for you. And if you'll contact Mr. Cox, you have a cell phone.
I do have his own.
If you'll contact him and let him know that you all are here.
I guess my question is he gonna know when I'm posting it?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state has the Zoom link for the doctor that's being called.
Okay.
Could you make sure that he has that Zoom?
Anthony
Zoom
Adami.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Here, I'll CC, I'm emailing Dr. Cannon right now. I'll CC you. I don't know if there was an assistant I'll be talking to you or.
I think there was.
Diana, you know what I rediscovered, Zach? You know what I rediscovered over the weekend?
Oh, Judge, please.
It's another movie to add to your list.
Oh, let's hear it.
Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap.
That's a classic.
Yes.
Yes, Spinal Tap.
The band you do?
I don't know.
The
It's
band?
a classic.
Oh, okay.
When I think plastic, Judge,
I have-
movies, you may not have
Is
seen
it
Princess
video
Bride,
or is it on
Princess
YouTube?
Bride. It's just.
All right, court is calling
Okay.
2022 CR 4248A State of Texas versus Jose Angel Ruiz. Can I have the parties announced for the record for the state,
Brittany Mitchell, Marissa Giovenco, and Ally Jackson for the state.
for the defense?
Teresa Connolly, Renee Munoz, and Lorraine Efron.
All right, and are you Mr. Munoz?
I'm Mr. Munoz.
I'm sorry, are you Mr. Ruiz?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, are both parties ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, off the record for a moment. So I'm doing this announcement at the beginning of this trial again. There's not to be any outbursts. Otherwise, what will end up happening is you will be removed from the courtroom. Does everyone understand? That's a yes
Yes,
or no?
ma'am.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. The lady who is on the end, she's in this court, so I don't know who her client is. We'll take you up at breakiness. Yeah. All right, everyone, please rise to the doors.
So four.
All right, everyone, please be seated. I hope everyone was able to find parking easily. All right, defense, call your witness.
Judge, Your Honor, I don't believe we have officially rested the state
All right.
rest.
All right. Defense, call your first witness.
Good morning, Your Honor. State calls Mr. Adame.
All right, if you can raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, you can lower your hand. Just make sure you keep your voice up for members of the jury and the court reporter. If you'll state your name for the record, please.
Anthony Adami.
All right, defense.
Good morning, Mr. Adame. We've met before.
Yes, ma'am.
Since the time that you were here before, have you reviewed any records from CPS?
No, ma'am.
And you did know you were subject to the call, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Directing your attention to the last interview that Heather Bryant had with the Losoya family. As far as you know, she never examined Mercedes' body that day.
Ma'am, I do not have personal knowledge of that. I was not there that day when Heather Bryant conducted that body check.
Especially on a show it to him. Your Honor, I'd like to show Defense Exhibit 2, which are the CPS records, all 6,015 of them. They're on a thumb disk here that Mr. Munoz is going to show.
Judge, my objection is there's been no foundation laid, it's hearsay.
All right, with regards to him viewing the records, he is allowed to view the records and then the court will respond to any objections as to hearsay. With regards to foundation and relevancy, that's going to be sustained. So you'll need to lay the foundation, what's the purpose, and you'll need to show that it's relevant by asking this witness questions.
Have you ever seen the entire file, Mr. Munoz?
I'm not Mr. Munoz, ma'am.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me, Mr. Adame. I'm sorry. Have you ever seen the whole file?
I have glanced through the file. Yes, ma'am. But particularly paying attention to what I was involved in.
Is that the whole story of the CPS? Only people only handle what they're involved in, not the whole case, not the whole person?
There is different divisions in Child Protective Services. The division that you're talking about with Heather Bryant is the Child Protective Investigation, CPI is what it's called. She is in a different section of Child Protective Services other than myself. We don't answer to the same supervisor, so to speak.
Is there any chain that follows the child all the way through?
I think it's more of a collective and we all have bits and pieces, man. So when Mercedes Losoya died, I came into that piece of the puzzle to investigate predominantly just her child death.
Did you bring anything with you in terms of knowledge to the death scene, to the hospital where the child was pronounced dead?
Just my training and experience from previous child death investigations, ma'am.
So you didn't know about any of the history, is that right?
Whenever I was called to the scene, no, ma'am. I called San Antonio Police Department that was on scene, and then I responded.
Your group is called Child Protective Services, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do to protect a child from being killed?
I'm gonna object to relevant. Sustained.
What do you do to protect a child?
I'm gonna object to relevant. Sustained.
What do your job duties entail?
My job duties as a special investigator, I conduct investigations into child death involving abuse and neglect. I conduct any kind of serious incidents such as, or serious injuries such as broken skulls, broken bones, burns of no nature that can be really explained that involve abuse and neglect. I've worked in labor trafficking cases involving children, sex trafficking cases involving children. I've been involved in cases involving law enforcement, involving our own employees, school personnel who perpetrate on children at school, in addition to some of the investigations involving our foster children and child protective services.
But you did nothing personally to save Mercedes Lasoya.
Object to relevant and argument. Sustained.
Did you do anything personally to save Mercedes Lasoya?
Object to relevant. Sustained.
Runner, we're here about Mercedes Lasoya, just argument in terms of that. We're here in terms, because of Mercedes Lasoya, and it's not relevant what was done to protect her?
The objection has been sustained.
Do you recall the last person to interview or confer with the family of Mercedes?
Which family? Are you referring to her paternal side or her maternal side?
Whoever had her. Do you know who had her?
The maternal side, our mother, Katrina Mendoza.
What was done?
What was done with what, ma'am? I'm trying to understand your question.
Mercedes Lasoya, was she the subject of the investigations? Or was it Katrina?
She was listed as a victim in that investigation. And in this particular one, the last one, Katrina Mendoza was listed as the alleged perpetrator.
Right, Katrina. So your job is just follow up when it's all over. Is that right?
In this,
Excuse me. I know you've given descriptions, but from what I see of your involvement, it was only to follow up when it was over. Is that wrong?
when what was over, ma'am?
The child's life. She was dead.
Mercedes' life, Mercedes Lasoya's life,
Yes.
when she passed away. Yes, I came into the piece of the puzzle to investigate why she died, what were the circumstances that led to her death, and to figure out all that information entailing her death.
Is there any path within CPS to ensure something like this doesn't happen again?
Object to relevant. Sustained.
Specifically, what behavior is required of a CPS person to help any child.
Object to relevant.
Sustained.
You know, I'd like to introduce this. Have you seen any of these records? These 6,000 by 15 pages?
Can you clarify what these records are?
I could show them. Thank you. Okay, can you?
Judge, do I have permission to move about the well?
Yes.
Thank you.
What was that?
Go ahead. I just asked for permission to move.
It's not detective, it's just,
Be sure to keep your voices up.
it's not detective, it's just a special investigator. Start from here and go down.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever it's ready.
This all looks like criminal history. Criminal history.
All right, so just 1 second. The reason, while y'all are having the conversation up there amongst the three of you all, do you want that on the record or not? Because it's difficult for the court reporter to hear.
I understand, Your Honor. I wasn't having a conversation. It's my understanding he had a question and I would respectfully ask that all questions come from her. So are you done, sir, or would you like more time?
No more time.
Then Diana, as soon as he's finished reading everything, we'll go back on the record. Yes.
Thanks.
All right, we're back on the record. Defense,
Are you familiar with those records that were shown to you, sir?
Some of the ones that are not involving the child death, I am not familiar with those. No, now, those are cases from before this.
Okay, how far back did you go?
I looked at that document that he showed me.
Which one was it? Mhm. You didn't look at all 6,015 pages, right?
And I was scrolling through most of them. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you see a train in there where there was any connective tissue that would follow through?
I'm gonna object with him testifying to anything in the records that were not admitted into evidence.
all right, that's gonna be overruled. You can answer the question if you know the answer to the question.
Object to relevance.
All right, you can answer the question if you know the answer to the question.
Ma'am, the connective tissue is maybe that it's Mercedes Lasoya. It's Jordan Lasoya and her mother, Katrina Mendoza.
Yes.
And then I also seen the father as well.
So was it helpful for you to see them at all?
Helpful in what way, ma'am?
In that you're able to understand what's going on with this case other than the death of Mercedes?
Again, ma'am, my focus was in on the child death portion of that.
Maybe I asked for the wrong witness. Who would I ask for that has the overall picture on how to save a child?
I'm gonna object to relevance.
Sustained,
Who should I have called instead of you?
I'm gonna object to relevance.
sustained.
Yes, witness.
Any questions?
Just one, Judge. Mr. Adami, you mentioned that Katrina Mendoza was an alleged perpetrator. Were there any other alleged perpetrators?
I'm
Yes,
sorry, I didn't understand that question.
I said-
Rebecca.
I said you testified that Katrina Mendoza was an alleged perpetrator. Isn't it true that Jose Ruiz was also an alleged perpetrator?
yes, ma'am.
Pass the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused?
Yes. From the state.
No recall, Your Honor. He doesn't.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone or watch anything. The only persons you can speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense, call your next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call on the district clerk. Dustin out there.
And Your Honor, we would object to this on relevance.
All right, we'll see what the district clerk has to say.
Your Honor, this could be avoided if the state will stipulate.
No.
Your Honor.
Stop. Witnesses need to be called. The court will hear any objections at that time. The requests for stipulations need to be done outside the presence of the jury, and I think both parties are aware of that.
No, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I wasn't.
All right. The requests for stipulations need to be outside the presence of the jury. And everyone just give us a moment.
Your Honor, apparently, the clerk isn't here yet, I'd like to instead recall Katrina Mendoza.
All right, if deputies, if you all could bring Katrina Mendoza.
Yeah, I haven't called.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna have you all step outside for a moment because since Miss Mendoza is being called back, her attorney needs to be here as well. So remember my instructions. We're off the record, Donna. You're not allowed to view anything. You're not allowed to start deliberating individually with yourself or with each other. You're not allowed to watch anything or do any investigations. Does everyone understand? All right, and I assume the room is open for you all? The jury room? Okay, just give us a moment. We'll take you all back, okay?
Can't call him? Okay. Can you find that? Yeah.
All rise for the jury.
Yes. But not even all that background. I had a pad here with those kind of numbers on it.
Has anybody called Todd McRae?
Yes,
I just texted him.
he's 10 to 15 minutes out.
Additionally, Judge, I was in contact with Dr. Cannon and gave his cell number to defense, so they can.
All right, actually, Dr. Cannon is on now. Would you all like to call him?
Yes, sure.
Dr. Cannon's on.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, can you let the jurors know they can come back in? We'll take up Dr. Cannon then.
Good for him.
Lina, happy Monday.
Oh, I'm just. Something on the ground. You're stuff. Let me go get that away.
Yes.
No, no problem. These are what we call Mondays.
Oh, here we go. It got underneath. It's underneath her CV.
So then what we'll do, defense, we'll call the doctor. You all are calling the doctor.
Yes, sir.
Then we'll see what the ETA is of Todd McRae. And then if somebody will pick up the phone and just call the district clerk, I'm sure the district clerk would either come or send one of her deputy clerks. If you all want to ask the employees of the district clerk's office who are in the back, I'm sure they would call.
Very much. Well, Justin was doing it this morning, Tony.
All right, if you'll tell them just come in.
All rise for the jury.
And then if you let them know when they come up, that they can keep her on hold. Everyone, please be seated. All right, Dr. Cannon, if you could unmute, please, and start your video.
Where is it showing, Your Honor?
He needs to unmute and start his video.
Where is it showing?
It's gonna show it.
It's not showing yet because he hasn't unmuted or started his video.
Where will it be shown?
It's right here on the screen.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Cannon, if you'll unmute, please. All right, if you can make sure you keep your voice up so that we can hear.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Awesome. All right, defense, call your next witness.
Good morning, Dr. My name is Teresa Connell.
No, call your witness, counsel.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I'd like to call Dr. Kanan.
All right, you may be seated. Dr. Kanan, can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record, please.
Yes, my first name is Rajesh, Rajesh. Last name Cannon, Kanan.
All right, this witness is appearing by Zoom. Any objection to the witness appearing by Zoom? State.
No objection, Your Honor.
Defense, any objection to the
No
witness
objection,
appearing
Your
by
Honor.
Zoom?
No objection.
Mr. Ruiz, any objection to this witness appearing by Zoom? All right, defense.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You're here specifically regarding the autopsy that you performed on Mercedes Lozoya on February 8th of 2022. She died on the 7th, but it's my understanding you performed the autopsy on the 8th. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and do you have those papers in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Going through the whole record, which is extensive, your first contact about this case was with whom?
It's really when I saw the case.
Do you recall speaking with Detectives Lawrence Size?
It's probably at the time of autopsy,
When was the time of autopsy?
on February the 8th, 2022.
At what time?
It's about 9 o'clock, 9 a.m.
And how long did it last?
Autopsy, probably a few hours.
You don't remember specifically with this one?
No, ma'am.
Is it noted on the form anywhere? I didn't notice it.
No, it just whenever we finish them.
I'm sorry, sir, what did you say?
Whenever we finish,
Whenever you finish.
yes.
You don't necessarily notice when you finish, though.
No, we don't.
So when you started the autopsy, I imagine, did you observe the outside of the child's body first, or did you go inside? What is your
Oh,
procedure?
no, it's a routine to look from top to bottom, outside, document, take photographs, and then we'll look inside.
Did you reach any conclusions from the observation outside?
I did the observation outside, yes.
Did you make a decision based on what you saw?
No, ma'am, we have to go inside and then wait for every test, and then we have to decide.
What kind of tests were you waiting for?
In this particular case, I did do additional microscopic examination of the tissues.
Which tissue was that? A particular place?
Yes, we did the comprehensive study on all the tissues, major organs, including heart, lungs, liver, adrenal gland, pancreas, spleen, thymus, intestines, and then also the kidneys, portion of the skin. And the kidneys, I did additional tests for a stain for myoglobin, which is myoglobin.
Okay. Now, when you performed the autopsy, you didn't have any prior information, is that correct?
Prior information,
Prior to that child being on your table?
no, it all started at the time of autopsy and after the autopsy. We met with the detectives.
Excuse me, Dr. Cannon, I know you're probably having difficulty hearing, but when an objection is made, I'm going to need you to stop talking so I can make a ruling on the objection. And
Okay.
attorneys need to use your microphones. All right, you may continue, Dr. Cannon.
It's at the time of autopsy and after.
Who was present with you when you performed the autopsy?
It's from the law enforcement. I believe it's Detective Sains, but I could be others. I can't remember.
It's not specifically noted who was there?
No, ma'am, no.
When you looked at Mercedes, when you looked at her, you didn't have any initial first impressions?
Object to leading.
That'll be overruled. You can answer.
Yes, yes. First impression is yes. This child suffered trauma.
How much trauma?
Well, it's extensive from top to bottom, all over the body.
Was Dr. Molina present when you were doing this?
No,
I'm
All right,
sorry,
that'll be overruled. You can
no,
answer.
ma'am, no,
she was not present.
no.
Okay. When you do an autopsy, do you have anybody helping you?
No, it's just me.
And possibly Detective Size?
Yes, if they come for observation, we allow them because they're the lead law enforcement agency.
There was evidence of medical intervention. Your notes indicate defibrillator pads are present on the chest wall.
Yes, ma'am.
Needle puncture is present just above the right knee.
Correct.
And intro,
Osseous.
thank you.
Yes.
Needle is inserted in the left shin.
Yes.
And that indicated that somebody tried to save the child?
Yeah, it's from the hospital. It's pretty routine to see this.
All right, now, the first thing note I have here is that the head. What do you recall about Mercedes' head?
Yes, I listed on each section because the injuries are pretty all over. So the head had a lot of abrasions or scrapes, and on the front, back, cheek, and also the back had a small a tear of the skin as well.
Where was that, sir?
In the back of the head.
The top? What part
In
of
the back. In the back.
Plain old center back, or?
Yes.
And what do you think that was from? Could you tell?
It's a blunt trauma.
Blunt trauma?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you have considered that a cause of death?
No, that's not alone as a cause of death.
But was it significant enough that potentially it could have been a cause of death?
Like I said, we don't infer just on one small tear. It's the overall picture which matters.
Yes. So that tear wasn't enough to give you a distinct impression at that point?
No, not at this point, no.
Okay. You talked about Mercedes' lip.
Yeah.
Broad 5 by 3 centimeter area of erosion with overlying superficial layer of thin tan granulation tissue. What does that mean, granulation tissue?
It's
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm gonna object to her reading from a document that's not in evidence.
All right, that'll be overruled.
Yeah, what it means is it's a tissue trying to heal.
What part of the face was it?
It's on the inner side of the lip.
Inside her lip.
Yes.
Could you ascertain what the source of that injury was?
No, we can't tell.
Like a child biting the inner side, inside of their
No,
mouth?
it's not biting. It could be any kind of trauma on top of the lip.
Did you notice some missing teeth?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember how many?
A few.
Was it unusual for a child of this age to have missing teeth?
I mean, one is we can happen if they fall, but quite a few with overlying trauma with different stages of healing is not common. It indicates there is some repeated trauma.
For how long a period?
It's probably days.
Days?
Yes, ma'am.
These were her baby teeth, as we lay people call them. Was
Yes,
that,
these are. Yes, that's right.
forgive me with these words, but present on the proximal mid-occipital scalp head are two contusions measuring 2 by 3 centimeters. What is that?
It's on the back of the head are contusions or bruise.
Were these recent?
They appear recent. Yes.
And when we say recent, are you talking in terms of hours, days?
I would say days.
Have you, at this point in time, begun to formulate a cause of death in your mind?
No, because these are complicated case, and we need to gather all the information.
Why was it complicated?
Because when I also need to look inside the body, not just outside. And
that-
inside the head, I did not see any obvious immediate cause of death.
So it was not, is it fair to say it was not the focus of your examination, her head?
Head is the main part of the examination, but I also look at other cavities like chest and abdomen.
The abdomen. You talk about a cluster of 3 contusions measuring 1 to 2 centimeters present on the lower left abdomen above the inguinal region. Was this done with, can you ascertain what caused these injuries?
It's just some kind of blunt trauma, and I can't really tell exact mechanism how it happened, but there is some trauma.
Thank you. You talk about her fingers being swollen. What is that from? Was there an obvious injury there, or? why
No,
would-
what it is it's an injury, but the tissue is reacting to the hand, and that it's swelling is common in injury.
Even post-mortem?
Well, it's around the time of death, so yeah, I can still observe it.
But it was observable, that's that.
Yes.
Thank you. Her arms had several different kinds of contusions, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
There was no evidence of sexual assault. Am I correct?
I did a complete examination and collected trace evidence. Um, I'm not sure if it was submitted, but based on my exam, I examined the inside of the anal canal, vaginal canal. I did not see any tears or trauma.
Thank you. At any point did you examine her throat?
Yes, inside, yes.
Did you see anything there?
But no, I could not see anything.
There was an allegation against the mother in her indictment that she had shoved a utensil down her throat. Did you observe any injuries from that?
I mean, not at the time of death, no, ma'am. No, there was no evidence of trauma.
Inside her throat?
That's right.
The child, did you know the child had asthma? Was that obvious to you?
I looked for signs, but I did not see anything
You did not.
obvious in the body. Nothing in the body.
Typically, if a person came before you and had asthma, is that something you would notice right off the bat, or you'd have to
No.
look for?
No, because asthma, remember, they don't come to medical examiner. It's a treatable condition. And we have signs of asthmatic attack when they go to hospital. Typically, they tell us what happened. And we kind of already know what to look for. In this case, that was not obvious.
But have you seen deaths from a bad reaction to asthma?
Oh, yes, yeah.
You did a full dissection of Mercedes' back, is that correct?
I examined, yes.
It says a full dissection of the back.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Now, I've seen autopsies on television, forgive my lack of knowledge. Do you turn the child over to examine the back or?
Correct. Yes, we have to.
Okay, and you cut the back as well?
Yes, yes.
Specifically, what did you observe that could have caused her death?
Well, I mean, like I said, all the injuries in the back, like around the buttocks, there were blood seeping into the deep tissues, which indicates the injuries I observed on the top went a little bit to the bottom. But again, these are only skin and soft tissue injuries. And that is not the immediate cause of death, but it can contribute to the death based on the severity and the distribution in a small child.
There were, I'm reviewing your report, it said there was no evidence of skull fractures.
That's right.
The hyoid bone, where is that?
Hyoid bone is a U-shaped bone, especially in a child. It's in the neck, and it's very flexible, very soft and thin in a child.
And you said that the hyoid and larynx are intact.
Yes,
The hyoid bone was dissected and there was no evidence of trauma.
correct.
The airway is patent and unremarkable.
Yes.
Did you notice subsequent, or rather, excuse me, before this, is it fair to say that you did not see the ER charge nurse's report?
We look into it, but we don't look into that much detail because I have the body in front, and if necessary, I will go back and read.
If the charge nurse had said
that he removed food from the child's windpipe area. Would that have affected anything that you looked at?
Well, the thing is, we need to know, is it really significant? Because there is chance of terminal aspiration, meaning if somebody is in the process of dying and the breathing kind of is not normal and sometimes food can get aspirated. So it's, we have seen that before. That's not the sole cause of death.
But it could be.
It only if it is significant, like a big chunk of meat, and then that needs to have evidence, like somebody saw somebody choking and went blue and then suddenly died, not slowly deteriorating. So it's a different scenario.
When you observed this autopsy of Mercedes, could you determine whether it was a sudden death or?
It did not seem to be, based on the scenario presented, it seems like the patient or the child was deteriorating for a while.
Stomach and intestines, says the stomach is distended with large amounts of partially digested food material, which consists of partially digested fragments of what appears to be thin, white, noodle-like material along with soft white material. Is that something very unusual or not unusual?
Not unusual, it just depends on what they ate.
Were you able to determine what the actual food was?
No,
Just noodle-like.
yes.
Thank you. You tested for COVID,
Yes.
and what was that?
Just maybe at the time, just to rule out if anything else was going on.
Thank you. Now, I noticed in your microscopic examination of the lungs that the alveoli were slightly dilated and there were scattered minute elongated foreign material in the alveoli under polarized light. Could that have been the noodles?
No, I think it's probably over time, something in the food, what she ate could have been there.
There's a whopper of a word here, Eosinophilic. Would you pronounce that?
Yeah, eosinophilic.
Yes, eosinophilic infiltration. No evidence of that?
Yes, what it is I'm describing, those are signs of asthma. And I didn't see any acute signs of asthma attack. So I'm saying a negative finding.
All right, thank you. Mucus, well, there's also no mucus plugs or thickened bronchial muscles, correct?
Yes, so again, those are also signs of asthma.
It said that there was a decalcified medial end of the clavicle. What does that mean?
What it is I took a small segment of collarbone, and then you can cut a bone, so you had to thin it out and then look under the microscope just to make sure that there is no problems with the bones. It's not a brittle bones or anything which can fracture. So documenting a normal finding, just to be thorough.
There was a comment here that healing abrasion of the skin, crater-like ulceration of dermis. What does that mean?
I took a section of uh, the trauma or the scrape, which looked like old, and I want to confirm it, and it confirmed that it's an old skin lesion.
Again, it couldn't be ascertained the cause.
Well, it's trauma.
The tubules, where are they?
That's in the kidney.
There's evidence of necrosis in the kidney.
A kidney under microscope, the tubules are the small tubes which collect the transport the urine, and those under the microscope showed evidence of damage, meaning the kidney is failing.
It failed prior
It's
to,
just,
or,
it's not functioning.
but was this prior to her death or
This is around the time of death.
around the time? Is that unusual?
Yes, it should not be there.
How would it get there? If you
I'm
know,
sorry.
I'll repeat your question.
how would that get there?
Uh, So the damage is caused in this condition by the products of the muscle being broken down by repeated trauma, and kidney is a filtering organ, so it's can't handle the load and shutting down.
Okay, we're almost through. Excuse me. The findings, multiple blunt force injuries of the body and their extent. Evidence of rhabdomyolysis. Would you explain rhabdomyolysis, please?
Yes, yeah. So the word rhabdo means muscle in Latin, and lysis is breakdown. So what's happening is due to the repeated trauma to the body, um, whatever injuries you see on the skin is affecting the muscles underneath, and the muscles over time break down, and the small molecules of the muscle gets to the bloodstream and to the kidney, and then eventually everything shuts down.
Are you able to quantify?
At all.
You're not able to quantify the
No.
degree to which they've broken down?
No, I can't quantify.
Is there a test that would quantify it?
No, I mean, we are even lucky to detect this stain in the kidney, which detected it. So that's the best we can do.
But there's no definitive determination about this, is there?
I mean, that is what it is, and we know that based on the circumstances of the death, the extensive injuries of the death on the body, that it's resulted of trauma.
You said the circumstances of the death. When
Yes.
you performed this, were you aware of circumstances of this death?
After the autopsy, yes, yes.
At this point, when you wrote these forms after the autopsy, not
Yes.
during?
Yes, we have to wait for all the evidence, talk with the investigating police agency, and then I have to come to a conclusion after.
People can survive rhabdo. Can I use the shortened term rhabdo? They can.
Yes,
they
if
can-
you are made it to hospital in the right time, not at the end stage, yes.
The testimony indicates that she was brought to the hospital with no life signs.
I think she was pretty much collapsed.
Now, Which muscle was it that caused her death?
Well, no,
What?
well, we can say which one. It's just general all over the body.
Well, you have muscles in your legs. Was it the muscles in her legs that caused her death?
Any muscle.
Any muscle could cause her death?
No, here in this particular case, the breakdown is resultant of muscles.
I'm sorry, so the breakdown of what?
Of the muscle, any part of the body.
So if just your leg muscles broke down, that would kill you?
No, not just alone, the extent of the injury and over a period of time, it just adds up.
But at some point, there's this specific muscle that'll cause the death, right?
No, it's not.
All right, just one moment. All right, what is your objection?
Object to leading and also object to asked and answered.
Sustained.
It's fair to say that you don't know specifically which muscle broke down to cause her death.
No, we can't say.
So could you have been wrong with that?
I'm sorry.
Could you have been wrong in your analysis?
Object to
No.
argument.
All right, that'll be overruled.
No, I'm not wrong. It's just my opinion, and we agreed with the other doctors. It was quality control analyzed, so we had a discussion. So it's not just my opinion alone.
And nobody else was able to determine which muscle it was.
No, I don't think anybody can. That's not how it works.
Well, it's kind of important to be specific here.
No, I mean, as a doctor, we can only do so much.
Now, you notice that she was reported to have weakness and altered mental status for a few days. Who reported that? Do you know?
It's probably a hospital as well as the law enforcement agency.
And where would they have gotten their information?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Who would have known prior to her death?
Whoever was taking care.
Whoever was taking care, yes.
Yeah.
Or not taking care, as the case may be.
Object to sidebar, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Reportedly, it says the decedent was reported to have weakness and altered mental status for a few days and was terminally witnessed to collapse suddenly and went unresponsive while being fed. Witnessed to collapse.
Your Honor, I object to her reading of the document that's not in evidence.
Sustained. You can ask your next question.
I'm considering, Your Honor. Now you have a fact here, that there was evidence of terminal aspiration. What was that evidence?
Just like the food particles, a little bit of a microscopic evidence of possible in the lung alveoli.
In the report, you indicate that asphyxiation could not be ruled out. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Would this be evidenced by the terminal aspiration?
No, it's nothing to do with that.
What does it have to do with, Your Honor? I'm Judge. No, doctor, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, so I did receive information from the law enforcement agency that in the past, there was evidence of loss of consciousness due to nose and mouth being covered, and that is a form of asphyxia. So what I'm trying to imply is if it happened in the past, I can definitely rule out that happened at the end.
You have a note here, as per the investigating police agency. And who was that?
The San Antonio police.
I subpoenaed in addition to subpoenaing you, I subpoenaed the police records and medical records.
Object, Your Honor.
Sustained.
What I subpoenaed was not provided.
All right,
Did you-
excuse me, counsel, you need to ask a question. We're not here about your subpoena. You need to ask a specific question. State's objection will be sustained. Ask your question.
Did you receive any written medical reports?
Yeah, I probably reviewed medical reports as well as police reports.
Do you have the whole file in front of you there?
No, not the file, no.
Do you have your bench notes?
No, I don't. I have my report, which is the permanent record.
But you do make bench notes during the course of an autopsy, don't you?
Yes, that's for transcription purposes only.
Do you recall any particular notes that you might have made that were not provided?
No, I mean, anything important or relevant, significant will be in my report.
I'm sorry, significant what?
Information will be in my report.
You have a notice here that the investigating police agency in the past before death, the decedent was made to hold heavy objects and outstretched arms, and the upper extremities were strapped to a pole with bandage to hold them outwards. Do you remember where you got that information?
From the police agency.
And you have no idea where they got that information?
No.
Relevance.
Sustained.
There's a report here that the decedent was witness to suffer asphyxial events in the past. Again, that's only from police reports, not from your personal knowledge. Is that correct?
Not from my personal knowledge, no.
Why did you say that asphyxia could not be ruled out?
Object to ask and answer.
That'll be overruled. You can ask.
Well, what it is in a child with extensive trauma and with prior history of trauma, and especially with a history of asphyxial event in the past, I cannot for sure rule out the same happen at the end.
If her bronchial, if her windpipe was blocked, could that have been a cause of death?
Like I said, that is a very specific event. They need to have those specific findings, and the terminal circumstances should indicate that without any prior trauma or any injuries on the body, then it's a different scenario. So it's case by case basis, and that's not what happened here.
Is it too late?
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
No, he's on Zoom.
He's on.
Okay, she's on
Can she
Zoom.
approach?
I meant the court
table?
reporter, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
Yes, you may approach the court reporter.
Dr. Kanan, do you have the investigative report and an autopsy report in front of you?
I have the autopsy report.
And what is the case number on your report, which is different?
It's 2022-0365.
How do I short this?
All right, so here's my question. Is she seeking to admit that into evidence?
Yes.
Or is there going to be any objections to that being submitted into evidence?
Your Honor, I object to the state of it. It does have highlights, which.
All right, does anyone have a clean copy?
I can print one off.
All right.
Another one of these. I know, but there's another. Just print it out.
Yeah.
Dr. Kanan, do you remember how many autopsies that you performed a year while you were here in San Antonio?
I mean, each year,
I'm sorry,
is it per year or,
when you were here in San Antonio for that year, 2020?
Oh. I don't know, probably more than 200?
Are you, you're familiar with Dr. DeMayo, Vincent DeMayo?
Yeah, I trained under him.
Back to relevance.
Overruled,
He said in his book that
Object to council testify.
sustained,
if he were to say in his book that more than 230 autopsies a year is too much and it can't be accurate, would that be true?
Object to relevance.
that'll be overruled.
Object to hearsay.
All right, that'll be overruled. You can answer the question if you can answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's just an arbitrary number set by the National Association of Medical Examiners. They don't want each ME to go more than 250 autopsies. That's just a number.
Just a number. It doesn't,
Yeah.
in your opinion, does it indicate that there's not as much accuracy in those kind of cases beyond that? Thank
I mean,
you.
there are some offices, they have to do more than that, but ideal is should be below that.
All right, just one moment. Mr. Munoz, would you state, are you going to have any objection to, it appears they want to enter an exhibit?
I don't have an objection. Your Honor.
All right, what exhibit number is that?
That's exhibit number 2, Your Honor.
All right, any objection to defense exhibit number 2?
No.
And for the record, what is exactly is defense exhibit number 2?
It's the investigative report of the medical examiner's office and the autopsy report.
All right, defense exhibit number 2 is admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just for clarification, Your Honor, it is just the autopsy report here labeled as defense exhibit number 2.
All right, that is admitted without objection.
Can we approach the court reporter?
Yes.
No,
I just,
besides the part you intended.
that's not what.
All right, ask your next question.
Just a moment, Your Honor. Another. Oh. Your Honor, this is the second half of my exhibit that the state objected to because there were markings on it. And this is still exhibit D. Sorry, D2.
All right, you all want to label that as defense exhibit number 3? State, are you going to have any objection to defense exhibit number 3?
No objection. Your Honor.
All right, and what is, for the record, what is defense exhibit number 3?
Defense exhibit number 3 is the investigative report. The one that was sent in, when I cross-examined the doctor.
Stop, counsel. My question was, what is defense exhibit number 3?
The investigative report. of
Any
the-
objection, state, for defense exhibit number 3 being admitted?
No.
All right, defense exhibit number 3 is admitted without objection.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, state.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Cannon.
Good morning.
And I think we skipped introductions. You are now the chief medical examiner in Nueces County, correct?
Yes, that's right.
When did you leave Bear County?
I left Bear County September of 2022.
Now, you mentioned earlier that this was a complicated case, correct?
Yes,
And you did the autopsy and then you looked at other evidence and you said you collaborated with other physicians.
yes.
And is it common in a case like Mercedes that it actually took a couple months to get the report back?
Oh, yes, yeah, because you have to put all the evidence in. When you don't have any one big diagnosis on the day of autopsy, we need to hold on and put everything together and make sure we have everything.
Okay. Now I'm just going to go through some of the things you talked about to kind of solidify. So it is your testimony that the lip, based on the location um, and the state of it, that it was definitely from outside trauma, correct?
Yes,
Now, there was some question about, well, can this happen post-mortem? Isn't it true that living processes that like swelling and temperature control, they stop when you die, correct?
yeah, I mean, tissue reacts different after trauma, and I could differentiate postmortem trauma versus trauma happened before because we are the experts in interpreting trauma.
Now, you said there was no evidence of sexual assault. However, you did notate that she had a dilated anus, correct?
Yes, that is the outside part, but I didn't really know what to make out of it.
Okay. And then you said there was no evidence of any trauma to her throat, correct?
No, no trauma.
And you mentioned a couple examinations for asthma. What were those?
First of all, when we open the airway, we are going to see some like mucus or like a slimy plugs obstructing the airway. I didn't see that. And also under the microscopic section, I did not see evidence of asthma.
Okay, so there was no physical evidence that she would have been having an asthma attack.
No, I don't think so.
The hyoid bone, that's something that is usually looked at if there's a suspicion of, say, suffocation by the neck, correct? Or strangulation, I should
Yeah,
say.
strangulation manual, we see that, and I don't think there is anything evidence of that here. No.
Okay, so if the medical history and what witnesses have said is that the defendant Jose Ruiz would put his his hand over her mouth and his hand
Objection,
over
Your
her
Honor.
nose.
Stating a fact not presented.
All right, that'll be overruled.
If the witness had said that he would put his hand over her mouth and hand over her nose to restrict her airways, that would not impact the hyoid bone, correct?
No, that's way higher up. It will not show evidence in the hyoid.
And I just want to make this clear because this phrase terminal aspiration has been thrown around a lot. That means that the aspiration happened while somebody is already dying, correct?
In the process of dying, yes. That's nothing to do with the cause of death.
Okay. And rhabdomyolysis was something that was absolutely confirmed in Mercedes' case, correct?
Yes, we confirmed it by microscopic evidence, and we confirmed with the other doctors. Multiple eyes looked at it. Yes.
And you testified that rhabdo can be caused when the muscles suffer trauma, but it can also be caused from extreme exertion as well, correct?
Yes, it can, and those can be corrected if taken to the hospital immediately. And whereas here it looks like it's happened over time.
Yes, and independently, trauma such as Mercedes could cause rhabdo, correct?
Yes, it can. Yes.
But then also, if you had a 5-year-old like Mercedes who was forced to hold objects for 3-4 hours at a time over a 2 or 3 week long period, that would also explain rhabdo as well, wouldn't it?
Yes, because you're using muscles over a long period of time. It can happen. Yes.
So in Mercedes' case, where she has extensive injuries and there's evidence of long-term exertion of her muscles, it makes sense that she has rhabdo, doesn't it?
It adds up, all those scenarios.
And you would agree that rhabdo is treatable if taken responsibly when they start showing symptoms, correct?
Yeah, early stages, yes.
However, it does pose a substantial risk of death.
Well, especially in a thin individual and young child, they don't have much reserve.
Yeah. And when you say especially in a young child, what makes them more susceptible?
Well, in medicine, young and old are similar. They don't have like a well-developed adult, so they're vulnerable to disease.
So Mercedes, being a 5-year-old, was more vulnerable to being abused, basically.
Well, I mean, that's a general statement, but
Understood. I'll retract that. Now asphyxia. When someone dies of asphyxia, would you consider that to be a sudden death?
it depends on the mechanism. If somebody's holding the airway obstruction like nose and mouth, it still takes some effort to do that.
Would you expect somebody who has asphyxia to then vomit and start talking before they die?
No, I mean, if that is the cause of death, they should die as a result of that.
Okay, so asphyxia would happen and then they should die after that without.
If that is the only trauma, and then that is the end of it, yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kanan. I'll pass the witness.
Defense?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, Doctor. I'm using you, but I respect you, and that's why I'm calling you Your Honor. Mrs. Mitchell mentioned to you, she used the word absolutely determined that it was rhabdo. Would you have used that word absolutely?
No, I mean, we are positive.
We are positive, but
Yes,
that's
positive.
absolutely.
I won't say absolutely, no.
I have a hypothetical. If someone was watching and saw someone jamming food down Mercedes' throat, and then Mercedes vomiting it out, trying to get rid of it, and that person were to jam a spoon down Mercedes' throat, and Mercedes then fell on the floor and had no breath, would that affect you at all if that was evidence put in front of you?
No, I mean, that mechanism doesn't sound right in this particular case. That doesn't fit the story
What story?
of the findings I see in the body.
But if you had been presented with that fact before you did all this, would that make a difference?
Well, even if it's presented, I would research into it, look into it. Like I said, it sounds like a choking death, which I have investigated many. We would particularly look into that, and I don't think there is any evidence of that here.
There was no evidence that you searched into it either. Was that correct?
I did not think that happened here because there was no facts presented to me, and then I did not see any evidence of that.
That's the point. No facts were presented to you about that. But if facts like this had been presented to you, would you have done your autopsy differently?
No, I mean, it wouldn't be any different. I would still do the same. And like I say, each case is different. Each scenario is different. Did that really happen in the case is question.
And again, it's impossible to say which muscles broke down.
No, I mean, we just say general because the test doesn't say which muscle did it.
It's not very precise though, is it?
No, I mean, it's not supposed to be precise. It's just to diagnose a breakdown.
Why isn't it supposed to be precise?
Because there is not particular a stain or a test which can distinguish each muscle. The skeletal muscles in the body are all the same. So,
And there's no way to quantitate.
no, we can't quantify it. No.
It sounds very vague to me. Was it vague?
I mean, it's a phenomenon, and it's a known phenomenon, and we found evidence of it. So
But it also fits the narrative of the very badly damaged little baby's body, right?
I'm sorry, damaged.
It fits your narrative.
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
Would you have been able to diagnose this as rhabdo immediately after the autopsy, or did you have to talk about it with your colleagues?
No, not immediately. We had to talk about it.
So you weren't able to determine immediately that rhabdo was the cause of death?
No, not immediately, no.
That's the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused?
Excused and not subject to recall.
All right,
Thank you.
the rule has been invoked. Dr. Kanan, you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone except for the state of the defense.
Thank you, Your
For
Honor.
zooming in, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
You're excused.
All right, if you all will bring out Miss Mendoza.
Yes, Your Honor, call the district clerk. She's here.
Judge,
He
we
was
lost
here.
Todd. He was here. I guess he
No,
left.
well, is the district clerk in the back?
It's understanding it's in the hallway, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring in the district clerk. Just one moment. And Deputy Laura, if you could check in the back to see if Todd Lachey was back yet. Thank you. I don't have those sheets, so they're- that's okay.
Okay.
I don't have any things. So what do you think I'm asking?
Hello, if you'll take a seat here, please. All right, if you could raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up for members of the jury and the court reporter if you'll state your name for the record.
Donnie Gonzalez.
Ms. Donnie, my name is Teresa Conley. Good morning. Did you bring the records that you have for Jose Angel Ruiz and Katrina Mendoza?
Your Honor, at this time, the state's going to object to the relevance of this witness and to ask for a voir dire outside the presence of the jury.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send you in the back briefly. Remember my previous instructions. Everyone, please rise for the jurors. I thought they took the clerk next because you had left, but after this witness, you'll be next. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, State, you want to take the witness on board here?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Good morning. What records were you requested to bring in?
On the subpoena, all indictments or charging instruments for Jose Ruiz and Katrina Mendoza.
And what did you bring with you, if anything?
None.
Why not?
There are no indictments.
I'm sorry, Donnie, what was that?
There are no indictments.
Are
In
you,
regard, I'm sorry. In regards to, related to murder or capital murder charges.
is that the sole extent that you were requested to come and testify, correct?
Yes.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
No questions.
Your Honor.
So what's the relevance of
Exactly,
this
there's no
witness?
relevance.
It's relevant as to what they've been charged. This is a capital murder case. It's a child under 10. She's
No, this
murdered.
is not a capital murder case.
It's not charged as a capital murder case, but under Texas law, murder of a child under 10 is capital murder. And Ms. Donnie is just saying that there is no record of a charge of capital murder or even of murder in this case. And that's relevant to my case.
All right.
Your Honor, we would say that this is not relevant. Further, the witnesses or the jury knows what the indictment is. It was read to them and defense counsel read the entirety of Ms. Mendoza's charge. They are aware that there is no murder charge and this is not relevant.
All right, state's objection to this witness is going to be sustained. The court is finding that her testimony is not relevant. The court is basing that decision on the indictment that is before the court and the indictment that was read when the accused entered his plea of not guilty. In that indictment, there is no listing of a murder or capital murder. So you're excused.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
and
you,
I,
Ms. Donnie.
I'm pardon?
Just said thank you to Ms. Donnie.
Thank you.
All right, if you'll bring out Miss Mendoza. Yes. All right. Mr. Todd McCray, where are you? Okay.
Verna, can we have a break, a bathroom break, rest
Uh,
break, whatever you want to call it?
5 minutes.
Thank you.
Can you let her know 5 minutes? And while they're doing that, Dana, are you able to switch over or do you need a break? For their state's exhibit 1? Yes, you can take a break after them. You can take a break after them. Yes. All right, come forward. Yes.
We've come to an agreement and have an exhibit for substitution.
No.
I don't know.
All right, so just tell me what's going on.
State has,
All right, so we're going to go on the record. All right, and let me call the case number. Let me see. Do you have the document from the 13th court? All right, if you can forward the email, I may have it, just one moment. Oh, I have it. And then we'll put everything on the record and have the exhibit marked. All right, I think you all have the Zoom link. Yes, I'll write it down again. All right, we're going to go on the record. Under the Court of Appeals of the 13th District Court of Texas, their cause number is 13-23-00572CR. Could I have parties announced, please?
Daniel.
All right. And sir, you are the appellate attorney for Mr. Wilson? All right, the court received an order of abatement from the 13th court. It was in regards to state's exhibit number 1 as being unviewable. Have both parties had a chance to review the request from the 13th court? All right. And my understanding from an off-the-record discussion is state you were able to duplicate state's exhibit number 1 that was originally submitted?
Yes, Your Honor. We were able to download it from Discovery and then I was able to.
And trial counsel, Mr. Cornelius Cox, were you all able to have discussion with him? All right, then it's the court's suggestion, since we already have state's exhibit number 1, if you will label it state's exhibit number 1A. So that way both will still be in the record. And for the record, state's exhibit 1A is a duplicate of state's exhibit 1. Is that correct, counsels?
first, after I muted it, and then.
All right, and Attorney, Mr. Cox is in agreement that that is State's Exhibit number 1.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else before we close the record? All right, then the record will be closed. Yes. All right, and then what we'll need to do is will the court reporter, Mary Scopus, have to submit that to the 13th court? All right, thank you. All right, Diana, you can take your break. Thank you.
Sorry.
Dinah just need to take a short break and then we'll bring them out and we'll bring her out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. And Deputy Laura, could you give them the Zoom link again? They have another witness they want to appear by Zoom. If you could mute us, please.
Well, I mean, I would just say.
All right, for the jury.
Mhm. Right, everyone, please be seated. Defense, call your next witness.
State, defense calls Katrina Mendoza.
He's gonna testify. Yes.
All right, you're still under oath. Make sure that you keep your voice up so that members of the jury and the court reporter can hear. Defense?
Good morning, ma'am. When was the last time that you actually lived with Jose on help?
During the month of January in 21 and 22.
You don't know for sure?
No, I don't know for sure.
Were you living with him on January 13th,
Of what year?
2022?
I think so, yes.
Would you have sent him texts if you were living in the same house with him?
Yes.
Do you recall a text where you were complaining about you couldn't take much more of Mercedes? Do you remember writing a text like that? Make me stand.
Yes, probably.
You remember telling him that
I'm gonna object to reading from items not in evidence.
Sustained.
did you ever tell him that you made Mercedes?
Again, judge, same objection.
All right, let me hear the question.
Did you ever tell him that you made Mercedes in timeout hold her arms up for 2 days in a row?
No.
Did you ever tell him that you couldn't have her with you much longer because you were afraid of what you might do?
No.
What was your phone number?
I don't remember.
Could it have been 210-551-0891?
I'm gonna object to reading.
Overruled.
I'm not sure.
Did you say at any time, I'm either gonna live with my stepfather or whatever, I'm sorry, whatever he was called, and your biological father, do you remember ever saying that to him?
Can you repeat the question?
Do you remember ever saying to Jose that you were gonna find a different place to live?
No.
That you were deciding between your godfather and your biological father?
I don't remember.
Did you ever tell him that you had to get a stable place to get the children in school?
Yes.
So they really weren't in school in January or February of 2022. Is that correct?
No, they were enrolled.
They were where?
They were enrolled.
Where?
I don't know the name of the school.
Did they attend that school at all in January?
I can't remember.
How many children did you have?
2.
Was Mercedes in school at all?
Yes.
Where?
I can't remember the name of the
Was
school.
she in a school or was she in a daycare?
School.
Was it a free school or was it a paid school?
Object to relevance.
That'll be overruled. You can answer the question.
It was a free school.
In order to get her into that school, do you remember what address you might have used?
1106 Caspian Point.
I'm sorry, 1106,
Caspian Point.
and where was that?
In by Marbach and Fortin.
And who lived there?
My godfather, my godsister, my 2 little brothers, and my godsister's husband,
And you too, is that right?
and me and my kids, yes.
So they only went to that school when you were staying at that house, is that true?
Yes, ma'am.
On January 12th, I'm sorry, 13th of 2022, do you recall telling Jose that you had Mercedes hold her arms in the air for 2 days in a row? When she got up the next morning, it started 2 full days. Do you remember telling him that?
No.
So if it's in an email, it must be a mistake.
I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing that.
You were saying that Jose beat your child to death about 3 weeks before her death. Do you remember that?
What I meant was his abuse caused her death, yes.
It couldn't have been the abuse that you caused on January 13th of 2022.
No,
What did you do to your child that day? Do you remember?
no.
If you have a text that says you did something, did you lie in texts?
Sometimes I would lie to Jose about what I was doing just to avoid an argument.
Pass the witness.
State.
I have 1 second here. Katrina, for what purpose would you lie to Jose about what you were doing with Mercedes? Because he would get angry if I treated her a certain way, so I knew what he wanted to hear, so sometimes I would just tell him what he wanted to hear to avoid an argument or to get physical altercations or just to avoid an argument. And what did he want to hear? That I was punishing Mercedes in any type of way. Okay. And you were living, you just testified you were living with your godfather, that's Homer, correct? Yes, ma'am. Okay, but on January 21st of 2022, there was an altercation and you moved out, correct? Yeah, around there, yes. Okay, and prior to you leaving Homer's home, Mercedes the day before had gone with Jose. Yes. And there was testimony, and defense asked you questions about, that you had said that Jose had beat Mercedes 3 weeks prior to her death. Isn't it true that you're actually meaning he beat her for the 3 weeks, prior to her death? Yes, that's exactly what I
Not
mean.
just 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Okay. Pass the witness. 3 weeks, the 3 weeks prior to her death. You testified on my direct examination that he hadn't seen the children for 2 days before her death. Was that a lie?
Can you ask again?
You testified on my direct examination that Jose had not seen the children for 2 days, 2 full days prior to her death.
Yes, that's true.
It is true. Definitely didn't see them. And at that point, say the 3rd day, where were you living?
I was staying with Jeanette.
Same with Jeanette. What kind of an altercation was it that you had at your godparents' home that you left?
We got into it because Jordan was playing with one of my little brothers and I got upset for some reason, I don't remember, but I confronted my godfather Homer about it and he kind of didn't want to like get after his son for, I think they were fighting over something, him, Jordan and my little brother. And I told my godfather and he didn't really like, he kind of just pushed it to the side, he didn't address his son about it. So I got upset and my godfather kind of pushed me. And so,
I'm sorry, physically pushed you?
yes,
Where were you when this happened?
Object to relevance.
Sustained.
Were you in his house when this happened?
yes,
What part of the house?
I'm gonna object to relevance.
Sustained.
You say he pushed you. He took his hand and threw it against your body, is that right?
I'm gonna object to relevance and ask and answer.
Sustained.
How did he push you?
Object to relevant.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that the fight was really about how badly you were treating Mercedes and they had gotten sick of it?
no,
Isn't it true that on the 21st, when this supposedly happened, that the CPS worker had been to your house there?
Object to leading.
That'll be overruled. You can answer the
No.
question.
What day was she there?
I don't remember, but it wasn't the day before we left.
But it was around then, wasn't it?
No, about like maybe 2 weeks before we left.
2 weeks before you left. What are we talking about in terms of time here? You left on the 21st?
No, I believe I left on the 22nd.
22nd. And if the witness testifies that it was the 21st of the last appointment, that would be a mistake, is that right?
I'm not sure, I don't really remember, so I could be wrong.
In the course of this testimony, you've remembered some things very clearly and other things not at all.
I'm gonna object to argumentative.
Overruled. And ask your question.
Overruled, Your Honor?
Ask your question.
Can she answer that? Have you overruled?
Yeah, ask your question and she'll answer it if she can.
I'm sorry, Miss Diana, would you mind reading it back?
In the course of this testimony, you remembered some things very clearly and other things not at all.
Thank you. Why is that?
Cause it's been 2 years,
3 years?
2,
2 years. And is there anything else more significant in your life than something like this that you would forget it?
there's just some things that I don't remember,
That you don't want to answer or that you don't remember?
that I don't remember.
Your Honor, I'd like to show the witness testimony of her daughter, Jordan. I need help with the state putting it on.
There's a lot of evidence. We'll get it then.
They're grabbing a disk drive.
Might be one. Hold on. Here we go. We got one.
All right. Ask your question as it relates to this exhibit. What question do you have of her?
I have to put it on your honor. I wanted to see it and then I'll ask. the
All right,
question.
no, that's not how it works, but
Did you ever talk to your daughter Jordan the day after Mercedes' death was announced?
No,
I would like to get your opinion on what your daughter said about you.
no object.
And it's- Objection?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I thought she was done. I'm an object irrelevant.
that will be sustained.
If your daughter said that you were jamming food into Mercedes' mouth and Mercedes was spitting it out, would that be true?
No,
If Mercedes was spitting out globs of food, would that be true?
no,
Why were you feeding her anyway?
I wasn't feeding her. She fed herself, but I gave her food because it was time to eat.
What time was it?
Maybe about 1:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon.
Was she on a regular meal time?
Object irrelevant.
That'll be overruled.
No,
What food do you recall giving her at 1:30, 2:30, whatever?
well, due to the swelling of her mouth and the missing teeth that she had, I gave her soup, I gave her bananas, I gave her yogurt, I gave her water.
You didn't shove it in her mouth.
No,
Jordan was lying.
I believe she's been coached.
Who would have coached her?
I'm not sure because I didn't have her right before, when I was in the hospital, she was not with me.
Where was she?
She was with Jose and Jeanette.
And who would have coached her about what she said?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
The witness testified that somebody coached her. What I'd like to ascertain is who would have coached her?
Right, the objection has been sustained to speculation.
So do you retract your statement that she was coached, since it's all speculation?
All right, the court makes its rulings. I have ruled that with regards to speculation, the objection is sustained. Ask your next question.
I asked her, Your Honor,
That will be
She
sustained.
retract-
Ask your next question.
would you retract your statement that she was coached?
Objection, argumentative, speculation, relevance.
Sustained.
I'd like to put that video on now, Your Honor, because of prior inconsistent statements and for impeachment.
It is not her statement. It's someone else's statement. That will be,
I'll object, Judge. That's not proper impeachment.
all right. You're not allowed to do that. It's not proper impeachment.
Was sustained?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's it.
We'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
No further questions, Judge,
All right, is this witness excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
from the state.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, you may step down.
Testify? When will we find out?
All right. Defense, call your next witness.
Your Honor, I don't believe she came. It was the pediatrician, but as far as I know, she's not here. If you could just give us a moment. Are you going to testify?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna have you all step outside for 5 minutes. Remember my previous instructions. And State, I'm gonna have you step out in the hallway while she discusses things with her client.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, everyone, please be seated. And Mr. Porter,
Some more.
Mr. Porter, if I could see you, please.
Yeah. 30.
No, they need to be on Zoom now. Just have them zoom in.
She has a room full of patients, Your Honor. She can't do it in 12:30.
Where are you expecting her testimony to be?
That she was treated for asthma, that Katrina missed any number of appointments, that she was prescribed medicine for asthma.
All right, do you have any other witnesses other than this witness?
Mr. Ruiz may testify. I don't know about.
All right, y'all need to talk to him and see if that's the case. If that's the case, then he can be put on, and then we'll take your other witness in the afternoon.
I'm not controlling that part of the case, Your Honor.
Okay.
He said no.
He said no.
He's saying no, that he's not going to testify at this point.
All right, so other than this last witness, do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then this is what's going to happen. Your witness needs to be here at 1 o'clock. And you all are going to remain here. We're going to go over this jury charge because there will be closing argument today.
Fine.
All right, any objection to me letting the jury know that they're released and we're going to come back at 1?
No objection.
No, Your Honor.
All right. We're going to take our recess at this point. We'll be back at 1 o'clock. And defense, your witness needs to be prepared to be by Zoom at 1. And then we're going to stay here because we're going to go over the charge.